10 Secrets the Royal Family Will Never Expose, Part 2. What did he say? Prepare to be a little grossed out. Prince Charles's marriage to Lady Diana Spencer was nothing if not rocky. Both parties had numerous affairs, including Prince Charles's very public romance with his previous girlfriend Camilla Parker Bowles, the Duchess of Cornwall. Both Charles and Camilla were still married to their prospective spouses, but it didn't stop them exchanging some very kinky phone calls. In 1992, the year Charles and Diana officially separated, a phone conversation was leaked where Charles expressed the desire to live inside Camilla's trousers as a pair of underwear, or most disturbingly, a Tampax. Ugh. The press went wild and titled the incident Tampon Gate. I bet his mother had some stern words with him over that one. As the Brits would say, bloody heck. No pun intended. Dating to Dahmer. Seventh in line for the throne and the Queen's granddaughter, Princess Beatrice is a socialite and philanthropist. She also has made some dodgy dating decisions in the past. In 2006, when the princess was just 17 years old, she started dating American playboy Paolo Luso. Prior to his relationship with Princess Beatrice, Luso was arrested for the manslaughter of 19-year-old Jonathan Ducatelier. Ducatelier was savagely beaten and passed away as a result of his injuries in 2002, after allegedly confronting Luso for disrespecting females at a party. Amazingly, the manslaughter charge was dropped and reduced to assault and battery. Luso even broke the terms of his probation while wooing Beatrice by taking a trip to the French Alps. Thankfully, the relationship did not last. Andrew. Prince Andrew is no stranger to controversy. In 2011, it emerged that the prince was good friends with convicted intimacy offender and American financier. I think we all know who I'm talking about. He was found guilty of soliciting intimacy acts from girls in June 2008. Police had launched an investigation into the person after a mother of a 14-year-old girl came forward and found some unsettling evidence. He was sentenced to 18 months, but released after serving just 13. Sarah Ferguson claimed that her ex-husband had asked this unspoken of man to clear some of her debts, although he later reported he had cut all ties with him. Buckingham Palace came under new pressure to explain the prince's ties with the American in 2015. Little person tossing. Yes, it's as bizarre as it sounds. He may not be of royal by blood, but rugby ace Mike Tindall married Princess Anne's daughter, Zara Phillips, so the connection is there. In 2011, the former England captain spent a night at a dwarf tossing club in New Zealand, following their win over Argentina. Although Tindall said not one member of the team threw a dwarf, his presence there was enough to outrage media and stars alike, including Peter Dinklage, who plays Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones. Do you think this is worse or on par with Harry's costume faux pas? I didn't even know this was a thing. Seems like the dwarf tossing scandal was short-lived. Number 8. The Hidden Prince. King George V and Queen Mary had been hiding a sixth son from the public, as he had epileptic seizures and George believed it would make their family appear weak. Due to these seizures, Prince John spent the last 4 years of his life in York Cottage at the Sandringham estate. The prince tragically passed away while he was very young due to a tragic seizure. The prince would have been Queen Elizabeth II's uncle. This is extremely unfortunate and reveals the extreme stigma against mental and physical ailments the royal family has. Racism. In 2009, Prince Harry was dealt a huge blow to his reputation when a tape emerged of him using racial slurs against members of his own army platoon, whilst they waited to be deployed from Sandhurst Military Academy. In the video, appearing as though it is shot by Harry himself, you can hear the prince using offensive language as well as racist terms. Once again, Harry had to make a public apology to try and save the royal family from further embarrassment. It didn't work, and the footage was relentlessly replayed around the world. In the statement, Harry said he understood the impact of his words and the offense they could cause. Meghan, you heard about this? Princess Diana's mental state. Apparently when she was still with us, Princess Diana struggled with mental health issues. She was actually struggling with depression and thought of taking her own life many times, even acting on the thoughts 5 times. Diana was said to have flung herself downstairs, cut her wrists with a razor, cut her chest and thighs with a knife, thrown herself at a glass cabinet, and cut herself with a lemon slicer in tormented cries for help. Unfortunately, she doesn't seem to have gotten much help from her family, as many of them think seeking treatment doesn't look good for them. Guns. They say you're only as good as the company you keep. If that's the case, Prince Andrew really isn't much good at all. Before his 2011 dalliance with convicted, let's call him the island boy, the prince publicly went on holiday to Tunisia with convicted gun smuggler Tariq Khaitouni. Libyan-born Khaitouni is said to have presented Andrew and his daughters with very expensive jewelry in exchange for some of the prince's business influence. The press were quick to jump on the royal for being so blatant about his deplorable social circle, with the Times stating in 2015, Prince Andrew dazzles easily when confronted with immense wealth and apparent power. He has fallen for friendships with bad, corrupt, and clever men. Ouch. We wonder what Mother had to say on that matter. Andrew again? It might be easy to see why Sarah Ferguson isn't in the good graces of the Queen. After all, not only was she loosey-goosey with her affairs, in 2010, an undercover reporter sensationally recorded her as she sold access to her ex-husband Prince Andrew. It wasn't for small change either. She attempted to bank $700,000 for the deal. The Duchess was filmed telling the fake businessman, "Do you understand that I absolutely have not a pot to pee in? I left the royal family with friendship, no money. Diana left with 20 million euros. And that's why the Queen is my friend, because I never took a bean from them. I have the biggest heart and the biggest of everything, but I have zero money. I have nothing." Is the Queen really your friend though, Duchess? Prince Harry. It seems as though there couldn't possibly be any more scandal surrounding Prince Charles and Princess Diana, but believe me, we've only just scraped the surface. In 1995, Diana let it all out in a tell-all interview with journalist Martin Bashir on the BBC program Panorama. In the interview, Diana admitted to her 5-year affair with James Hewitt, a military man. It was widely speculated after Diana's passing that Hewitt was the biological father of her son, Prince Harry, and not King Charles. Although the two are extremely similar looks-wise, Hewitt has denied it, saying Harry was born before the relationship started. What do you think? I personally think, no offense Charles, but Harry has to come from Hewitt because he's way too attractive. There's a centuries-old claim that Edward IV was illegitimate, born to Cecily, Duchess of York, by an English archer, surnamed Blayborn by some, while her husband, Richard Plantagenet, 3rd Duke of York, was fighting elsewhere in France. The legitimacy of Edward IV was the subject of speculation at the time, and a document in Rowan Cathedral is presented by Dr. Michael Jones as indicating that Richard and Cecily were about 100 miles or 160 kilometers apart during the 5-week period when Edward's conception must have occurred, assuming that the pregnancy went to a normal term. If Edward were indeed illegitimate, then he and his descendants would have had no valid claim to the throne, so the claim suggests that the real monarchs were the heirs of his legitimate brother George, Duke of Clarence. Princess Margaret. The late Princess Margaret, the Queen's sister, piqued public interest with her lifestyle choices. A heavy smoker and drinker since the age of 15, Margaret lived life as she wanted to. Although she married photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones in 1960, Margaret's conquests didn't end there. In 1973, the princess started an affair with a gardener, 17 years her junior. Margaret didn't escape the press, and in 1976, a picture of the princess with her lover, Roddy Llewellyn, appeared on the front page of the now-defunct News of the World. This wasn't the first extramarital affair that rocked the marriage, and by 1978, the divorce was finalized. Rabid dog. Princess Anne is the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth, sister to Prince Charles and Prince Andrew. Known for her charity work, it might surprise you to realize that Anne is no stranger to scandal either. In 2002, Princess Anne and her husband were putting their dogs into the car after walking them in Windsor Great Park. One of the dogs, an English Bull Terrier, escaped and ravagely attacked 2 young boys riding their bikes. The couple were taken to court and ordered to pay a fine, making it the first time a senior royal had ever been charged with a criminal offense. The dog was allowed to live, to the anger of the victims' families. The following year, the same dog ended one of the Queen's most beloved corgis, when it was revealed that Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth II were distant cousins. This revelation was initially reported by Business Insider. The report states that both Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip are directly related to Queen Victoria. The relation is that Queen Victoria was Elizabeth's paternal great-great-grandmother, and Prince Philip was related on his mother's side. Keeping things in the family is well known to have happened throughout history with royal families around the world, and the royal family of the United Kingdom is no exception. The thought process behind it is to keep the family pure and the royals royal through blood. When a prince partied like a rock star. A British royal prince with matinee idol looks and an artistic temperament falls into bad company and gets hooked on hard substances. He leads a scandalous life with both men and women, and is rumored to have fathered several illegitimate children. His impeccable dress sense makes him a style icon. He marries a beautiful European princess, and they become both the nation's favorites and the toast of high society, but the bisexual affairs allegedly continue. Leaving the Royal Navy, which he hates, he becomes the first royalty to work as a civil servant. Prince George Edward Alexander Edmund was the royal in question, and is always left out of the conversation when talking about the history of royals. He is known as the Forgotten Prince.
Raven. The tale that 6 ravens live in the Tower of London is in fact not a myth. They actually do live there at all times. Sounds pretty strange, but there's actually some basis for it. It dates back to an era of Charles II when he required that 7 ravens live in the tower. By 7, he actually meant 6 ravens and a spare. The request was actually spurred from a legend that once said, "If the ravens leave the tower, the kingdom will fall." And so the words inspired Charles II to ensure that there were 7 ravens living at the Tower of London. The tradition has been upheld. You will find 7 or maybe 6 ravens at the Tower of London today. That's so Raven. Travel. Every family has its traditions. The royal family is no exception, but it's no ordinary family tradition. In case you were thinking I meant something along the lines of laying in on the weekend or rewatching Friends or The Office every Friday night, their tradition is more of a protocol based around security fears. Family members of the same line are not allowed to travel in the same plane together so that just in the case of an accident, wiping the royal lineage is prevented. The tradition has only once been broken by Prince Philip when he flew to Canada in the same plane as Prince George, who will succeed him one day in the future. He did, however, ask for the Queen's permission beforehand, but it was a risky move. Life for a life. The royal family's protection officers will in fact risk their lives to save the royals. This may be common knowledge, but it's crazy to think someone signed up for, I'm assuming, a pretty good pay to take a bullet for the royals, and they would. This goes for many other protection services for important people, and we've seen it in action during assassination attempts where the security makes a heroic dive. Fortunately, I've never seen the Freaky Friday life swap, and everyone's been safe. Privacy. The royal family, unlike government officials, does not have to disclose non-public information and can keep whatever they'd like a secret. The late Queen, to a degree, had an open door policy in which she was okay with sharing information, but we have seen times where major court cases from the public eye and fast. This also in return is for their staff, and the staff all have NDAs that make sure they don't go putting out any information about the royals family lifestyle when those palace doors shut.